You know, in politics, when a powerful story takes hold, how do you even begin to fight it? Well, it's not always with more noise. Sometimes it's with a totally different strategy. Today, we're going to deconstruct how one of the most persistent accusations in modern politics was systematically taken apart, piece by piece.
So let's start with a really familiar and potent accusation. This quote here from Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, it really captures the core narrative that was often aimed at former President Donald Trump. The idea is that he deliberately uses division, race, religion, gender, as a political weapon. This is the narrative we're going to dig into.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll lay out the prevailing narrative. Then we'll introduce the counterargument and the evidence used to back it up. We're going to see how the very terms of the debate get redefined, and that all leads to a final look at what happens when powerful rhetoric crashes into a documented reality. Okay, first things first. Let's unpack this narrative. The charge that a political leader is actively trying to stir up division, that's not exactly new, right? But it's a powerful theme that, when you hear it over and over again from opponents, it can start to feel like an undeniable truth.
And the crucial word here is intent. See, the accusation isn't just about disagreeing on policy. It's the claim that all these societal divisions we see based on identity are not some accident, but a calculated political strategy designed to hold on to power.
Now, let's pivot and look at the counter-argument from Dr. Ben Carson. Instead of just firing back with more heated rhetoric, his strategy is to take a completely different path, one that he frames as calm, based on evidence, and really designed to dismantle that prevailing narrative piece by piece.
Carson's opening move here is pretty unexpected. He doesn't start with modern politics at all. Instead, he reaches way back into American history. He's reframing the whole debate by arguing that using division to maintain control is one of the oldest and frankly most cynical tactics in the book. And from that historical starting point, he builds to the core of his counterargument, that the charge of racism has now become a tool of division itself. He's proposing that it's being used to intimidate people, to enforce a certain way of thinking, and to shut down anyone who dares to step outside of a prescribed viewpoint.
So after setting that philosophical stage, Carson pivots from theory to practice. His whole argument is that to really test a narrative, you have to get past the rhetoric and look at the cold, hard record of policies and actions.
And here's the evidence he brings to the table. He points to a whole range of actions, from economic policies that he says led to record-low unemployment for Black Americans, to specific laws like the criminal justice reform in the Second Chance Act and the creation of opportunity zones. He also brings up increased support for historically Black colleges and universities, and even actions he took before becoming president against discriminatory social clubs.
And all of this leads him to his big conclusion, which he frames with a bit of irony. His argument is basically, look at this list. This record, he says, directly contradicts the racist label. The logic he's presenting is that the actions just don't line up with the accusation, making the whole label, in his opinion, absurd.
But Carson's argument doesn't just stop at refuting the claim. Oh no, he takes it one step further. He actually tries to flip the script by grabbing control of the most charged word in the whole debate and giving it his own definition. And here is his pretty provocative redefinition. According to Carson, the real racists aren't people with personal prejudices. Nope. He says they're the ones who enforce ideological conformity based on race. He basically turns the accusation right back on those who he claims demand a specific political view from people just because of their skin color.
This side-by-side comparison makes his strategic move crystal clear. On the left, you've got the common definition we all know, but on the right, that's Carson's reframe. See how it shifts the focus away from personal prejudice to what he calls a form of political and ideological coercion?
To ground this idea, he then uses his own life story. He talks about being completely immersed in one political viewpoint until, as he puts it, he did something liberals are never supposed to do. He actually listened to a conservative. He points to hearing Ronald Reagan as this turning point, the moment he felt he could think for himself and break free from the kind of ideological pressure he now criticizes.
So at the end of the day, this entire back and forth really boils down to a fundamental conflict. You've got a powerful, widely repeated narrative on one side and a documented record of specific actions on the other. And this right here captures the very essence of the debate. It's like a scale. On one side, you have the weight of all the rhetoric and the accusation of division. And on the other, you have the counterweight of what Carson presents as the documented record, that list of policies and outcomes that he argues prove the exact opposite.
The core of Carson's entire strategy is to ground the debate in this record,
to expose what he sees as the fundamental weakness of the accusation. The underlying argument is pretty simple. When you present a narrative that's built on tangible outcomes, a purely rhetorical claim starts to lose its power.
And this whole thing leaves us with a really critical question, one that goes way beyond this single example. When a leader's public narrative seems to completely conflict with their documented record, which one do you believe? And maybe more importantly, how do you even begin to decide?